Well, I think we arrived at the end of this dialogue. 2 long days. I've tried to listen very carefully to all of you during these 2 days. It's difficult to remain really focused minute by minute. Sometimes you lose the track for a while, but well, I've tried to listen. And there are so many things that have been said during these 2 days that it's almost impossible to summarize. Although I admire the efforts of my colleagues, Jean-François, Thierry, and Ted, who have tried to wrap up what has been said during these 2 days. I will just pick 2 points. In fact, there are words that have been pronounced yesterday. The first one was, I think it was Mitsuo Tsugeno, the young lady, young farmer. She said how it is important to put oneself at the place of the other, or the others. And I think this is a very important point, because I feel that putting oneself at the place of the others is probably the essence of humanity. You know, this is also the foundation of the respect for the others. This is the human dignity. And retrospectively, by the way, I have to say that I have learned that by reading your famous novelist, Japanese novelist, Yasushi Inoue. He wrote a book about Kochi, about Confucius. And this is one of my favorite books. I read it many times. And I take it when I'm traveling, I take this book with me, and I open the book to a page, because I know very well the novel. And then I read a few paragraphs, and by chance, when I came to Japan this time, in the plane, I opened once again Koshi, and I just read a few paragraphs where Inoue is talking about humanity. And I just went back to this page yesterday night, and I quote Inoue. He says in his novel, "Humanity is the consideration for the other. It is the ability to put oneself in the place of others." And I think, when I think about the 12 dialogues and what happened during the last 4 and 5 years, I think, of course, there is all the efforts, technical and scientific efforts, driven by the government, by the experts. But there was something very special in the middle of all of that, is that there are many people, sometimes who had nothing to do with radiation protection, with nuclear energy, that commit themselves to help, let's say, about the situation. And they allowed to make huge progresses during the 4 and 5 years. And the key reason why they have been so effective is, I think, because they had this ability to put themselves in the place of others, which means to listen carefully the concern of the Fukushima people and to work with them, to accompany them. And I think this is this dimension of humanity which has been probably a key factor in the path to recovery. And there is another word, and it's linked to what I just said. There is another word which was said by another farmer. So it means that there is a lot of wisdom. Farmers are wise people. Shinya Endo said that he went on raising rice because he wanted to leave the option open for his son, to keep the option open, the door open for his son. And I think this is also something which is a key issue, is how to maintain all the options open. This has been raised several times during these 2 days. And I think this is also part of the respect for others. This is the respect for the future. This is also based on the faith of the future. I mean, this is part of the human nature, to never give up. And, you know, I was thinking that what is the role of science among all that? Because I remember that during the first dialogues, we were very focused on the scientific aspects. We were talking about millisieverts, about becquerels, about internal and external exposures, about decontamination, about waste. Slowly, this has disappeared a little bit during the, although it is very well present. And I think during this dialogue, for example, there was this presentation from Raisa, or the presentation from Hugo Ayano, you know, just condensing what science can bring into the picture. And I think there is clearly 2 points, and they were clearly emphasized by Thierry and Jean-François in their report. The key role of measurements, the key role of accurate measurements, measurements made not to do statistics, but to help each individual to find his way in the situation. And the key role of expertise, which means science, but at the service of the people. Not trying to teach people, but just listening to their concerns and trying to fix the problem that, thanks to I would say, the skill of the scientist. And then, this is always a question I'm asking myself. How to combine this scientific aspect and how to combine also the human dimension, dignity, and the respect for the others. Well, I think this is a real challenge. And then there was the presentation this morning from Mrs. Kageyama. And she touched a point that we discussed a little bit during the dialogue on culture in the past. She presented briefly her book, Walking Through Itate. I think this is a fantastic title, because I was listening to her, and at the same time I was projecting in the past, 20 years ago, walking in the village of Olmani. Olmani was mentioned 2 or 3 times by Raisa. I spent 5 years in this village, not of course all the time, but I went there maybe 20, 25 times or 30 times. And quite often I was walking through the village. And then I thought also about walking through Sutsegi. And that is, of course, more recently. I only went there 4, 5, 6 times. But the words from Mrs. Kageyama was echoing myself walking in Olmani and walking in Suetsegi. And then at that moment I thought, oh, I had sometimes the feeling when I was walking through these villages that I found roots. And I was very pleased when this afternoon Mrs. Kageyama said, this is a matter of roots. The roots, and the roots can be everywhere. It's not only the roots of the native place. These are the roots that you feel by going through some places. And I was also thinking, well, how can you put that into the scientific model? You know? How can you put human dignity in equation? No way. How can you put the roots, the climate, the culture into the scientific models? No way. So the question is, we need science, obviously, but we need also human dignity. We need also roots, culture. So how to conciliate all that? And I have the feeling that during this dialogue, there is something that, and I will use a word from Makoto Miyazaki. He used yesterday the word emergence. He talked about a butterfly, but he talked about emergence. He even had some sort of vision, because as usual he was, you know, hands over his head, and he said, emergence, butterfly, and the earth, you know, something emerging. I have the feeling that something is emerging. I have the feeling that something is emerging. I don't know what. But that was the general feeling of this dialogue. Something is emerging. To put that in words, which maybe are not really the adequate word, but I had the feeling that this was the most philosophical dialogue since the beginning. I mean, we went in so many directions, but it was so deep. Something is emerging, and thanks to this sharing of experience, thanks to these different perspectives, you know, someone said today, I am stretched, but we are all stretched by the situation. And I think this is our challenge for the recovery. This is to find together what's the meaning of this emergence. What is emerging? I don't know. But this is what probably we need to go on thinking about it. I'm really thankful about these 2 days, all what I listened, and all your contributions, because it helps me to better understand what is at stake. This was probably it's also a heavy word, but this was probably my destiny. I was working in radiation protection, and then Chernobyl happened. And by chance, I was asked to go there. It was not even my personal willingness to go there. I was asked to go there in 1990. And then I discovered the situation. And since that time, I have devoted a lot of my energy, first of all, to try to help the situation, because as a professional, radiation protection professionals, if you see people who are suffering because of radiation, you try to fix the situation and to put your skill at the service of these people. But beyond that, I'm always fighting with this question about what is the meaning of a post-accident situation. There is certainly a meaning for humanity, and I mean, I have been struggling with this for decades now, and I'm thankful to all of you because you helped me to progress a little bit, step by step. And really this dialogue was amazing with regard to this emergence that I see coming slowly. Thank you very much to all of you. Now, I'd like to just come to the end of this dialogue. And sorry, I have to open my computer because I have a long list of people to thank. And I don't want to miss someone. First, I'd like to thank Mrs. Yoko Endo and Mr. Yuichiro Kuroda, who prepared a great program. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Jean-François Lecomte and Thierry Schneider and Ted Lazo for their well-targeted report, as usual. Junichiro Tada for his co-chairmanship and his ongoing support, discreet support. I would like to thank all the speakers for their remarkable contributions, and particularly Raisa Misura for her testimony. I think we were a little bit pressed by the time, but I'm sure we had not enough time to discuss about her presentation and to ask her a lot of questions. But nevertheless, I know that many of you have discussed with her, and I've seen that she was exchanges, addresses and things. So I think this was a great contribution, because she condensed in 30 minutes all her life, all her professional life. That was really a great testimony. I'd like to thank all the participants to the panels, the two panels from yesterday and today, for their personal reflections. That opened a lot of very interesting dimensions. Of course, all the observers for their attentive listening during these 2 days. Just a very special thank to Makoto Miyazaki and Makoto Omori. I just added that in my list for their interpretation of Autumn Leaves, the famous French song. That touched me a lot. You know, first of all, because we are in autumn, but there was this Parisian touch that I really appreciated. Thank you very much, Makoto, and please pass that pass my thanks to the other Makoto Omori. Of course, as usual, I have not to forget Mrs. Kimiyo Mashida, Mrs. Haruko Ota, and I will associate this time Vitaly Yashkevich. They have done a brilliant work. Without them, the dialogue would have been meaningless. Of course, I want also to have a special thank to Yun Takai, because he brought into the dialogue the key dimension, looking at Fukushima with the eye of an artist. And thank you very much for your photos. So now I will be very fast. I want to thank the organizations supporting financially the dialogue, the Committee of Radiation Protection and Public Health, the French of the OECD NEA, the French Institute of Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety, the French Nuclear Safety Authority, the Nippon Foundation, and the Norwegian Radiation Protection Authority. Thank you to all of them for their ongoing support since the beginning of the dialogue. Without them, without their support, there would be no dialogue. And of course, to finish, I told you it was a long list. I want to thank the city of Date, through Mayor Nishida, but also Takahiro Hansawa, for their ongoing support. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the chair of ICRP, Claire Cousin, for highly symbolic presence during these last 2 days. And before to close this 12th dialogue, this is the end of a series, but we are not going to stop now to come here in Japan and to continue the discussion. But we have to find another way, I mean, to continue to dig around this emerging thing. And so I would like to invite both Mayor Nishida and Claire Cousin to say the final words for this dialogue, and I will not come back and say anything else, so I thank you, all of you, for all your contributions, and I wish you, all of you, a safe return back in your home. Thank you. Thank you.